Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have the block reporting Justin Sun stablecoin USDD no longer backed by Bitcoin, as $750 million worth of Bitcoin removed from the Tron DAO reserve. Number two, Sony tease ETH L2 to launch to make something people want and go mainstream beyond Web3. And finally, PayPal partners with Anchorage Digital, the only US crypto firm to hold a federal bank charter. They will be offering significant stablecoin rewards. We've been touching on them a little bit last few days. And we've also got the latest on price action on crypto, NFTs, and some discussion on how crypto is dominating US political donations this year. Got a bit of a deep dive on that as well. Today, Legendary is in the co-host seat with Sammy too, and we're ready to get into it. But before we do that, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is incredibly risky and we do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Friday, the 23rd of August. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM. Quite excited for today's show. I'm doing well. I think we have some spicy things to comment on, and I can't wait to get into it.
Well, it depends. How much are you trying to get us sued for defamation on today's show? Is that something that is the intention? Are we gonna stay on the right side of that line, or are we gonna just go for it?
We are gonna stay on the right side of the line, but we are still gonna be juicy. Definitely don't want to get sued by by Justin Sun.
Cannot be sued by His Excellency. As always, trying to report the facts as we know them, and just try and get the information into your guys' ears and eyes, no matter where you're watching, whether you're live on X in the space or whether you're watching in on YouTube or Twitter as well. Sammy, how you doing? How's your Friday going? What are you up to?
It's great. It's thank God it's Friday. TGIF, ready for the weekend. Ready to get through this news and then just enjoy some downtime up in the Cotswolds over Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Sounds pretty nice. What are you doing in the Cotswolds? Are you going walking? Are you going hiking? Are you doing anything else?
Still recovering with the leg, so hiking's probably out of the question. But I think just exploring the area, change of scenery, touch some grass, and then come back refreshed for Monday.
You know how we were talking about the deadlift ETF the other day? I did have a question planned for you, which is like, given that you cannot deadlift currently, you cannot do any significant weights. I guess you're kind of in rehab mode still at the moment. But have you found it on a personal level just like more difficult to execute on the level you want to because you can't get that physical exercise, or have you just kind of got used to it and still been fine?
So I'm doing physio, and I've actually started loading my legs now. So getting back into the gym, which is good. But I think if you'd asked me that 2-3 weeks ago, probably would have been a different question. I think the lack of stimulus from exercise definitely is notable. So I think exercise does play a huge role in trying to like perform to your highest abilities in work as well.
Yep, I think that's fair. Legendary, how are you doing on the exercise front? Are you getting out there, getting in the mix, getting in the gym?
Pretty good. It's been very disciplined for the last couple of months, 2 months for me. Been tracking calories, doing 1,650 calories a day for everyone who wants to know. Hitting the gym, now included running as well in that, and feeling better. Like a good friend of mine turned 40 and he hit the best shape in his life. And I used to be in great shape like 6-7 years ago. And I'm like dedicated to hit personal bests on each and every end and also get to the best shape that I've ever been. And it's all about consistency. Like this is the 328th episode of the Modern Market, and it's the same thing with working out and eating. Just do it daily, track your stuff, and you're gonna progress. And gotta be patient with it.
And you're going for muscle ups, aren't you? By the looks of it, by your recent post.
I can do a muscle up, but there's so much kipping and swinging and momentum in it that it's like almost cringe to call that thing a muscle up. And I want to progress to make it look a bit smoother.
I like it. I like everything that you said, apart from the calories thing. I can't do it. I hate counting calories. I don't. I mean, I like exercising a lot. I like doing that stuff. But when it comes to like counting the calories, I don't know. It turns me off. turns me off in a big way.
Can't do it without it. I can either like eat like a crazy person and don't give a shit about anything, or I can be the most disciplined person and track every calorie. There's no healthy middle ground, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Look, the numbers are important. Let's get into the other numbers that we find important as well. We're going to go to the price action and the headlines from the snapshot, which is pinned up top if you're listening in the Twitter spaces. Let's start with the price action on crypto. We've got Bitcoin pretty flat, just underneath 61K at 60.8. We've got ETH up almost 1% at 2.6 as well. Solana pretty flat as well, $143. Not a huge amount of movement in the majors in the last 24 hours, so that's all pretty calm. In terms of the headlines themselves, we've got the block reporting that Justin Sun stablecoin USDD is no longer backed by Bitcoin, as the $750 million worth of Bitcoin was removed from the Tron DAO reserve. The commentary here is that Tron founder Justin Sun reassured users that there is nothing to worry about after the Tron DAO reserve removed nearly $750 million worth of Bitcoin backing the USDD stablecoin on Wednesday. The algorithmic stablecoin, launched in 2022 as a competitor to Terra's now defunct UST token, is now backed primarily by Tron's native token TRX. So this is that news coming out. Legendary is going to do a bit more of a deep dive on that in just a little bit. Number 2, Sony teased ETH2 to make something people want and mainstream beyond Web 3. I think a lot of people are coming out saying that this is the sign that lots more companies, DC Investor said this, I expect many more companies and organizations will build on ETH L2s in the coming years. And then finally, I've kind of touched on PayPal the last couple of days in different segments. Headline today, PayPal partners with Anchorage Digital, the only US crypto firm to hold a federal bank charter to offer stablecoin rewards. They say in a bid to increase adoption, PayPal is partnering with Anchorage Digital to offer rewards to Anchorage Digital's user base of accredited investors who hold PYUSD at its US bank, its Singapore subsidiary, or by means of its non-custodial wallet, Porto. So we'll do a bit more of a deep dive on that a little bit too later. In terms of some notable sales, we had this really interesting looking Dmitry Cherniak ringers selling for 48 ETH. Definitely a rare one. I know the floor is much lower, I think around the 20 ETH region. And then again, some CryptoPunk sales going through as usual, and a Pudgy Penguin Wizard selling for 13.5 ETH. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Let's head over to our NFT marketplace partner, Mintify, see what's going on in the NFT sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. The NFTs are kind of mirroring the majors today. Not a lot is going on. Everything's pretty flat. We have Bored Ape, Yacht Club, basically unchanged, 12.9 ETH floor. Pudgy's up 0.7%, 10.5 ETH floor. Milady's 3.9 ETH, also unchanged. And Azuki just down 1% at a 4.6 ETH floor. However, something else that I wanted to go to in terms of the NFT market is a collection that we visited at the start of this week in the Pudgy ecosystem, the rods. We reported that they pumped massively on a post by Luca saying they are the most outstanding generative art in this ecosystem. We saw massive buys coming through. And not a lot has happened after that. So I was curious to see if this momentum held up and what the collection did. And I was honestly quite surprised that the floor is still up. They're still at a 0.26 ETH floor. And they're actually up even another 6% over the last 24 hours. So the market has not dumped them. It's to me a positive sign in the sense of that we've seen like posts, announcements, pump a collection for 1 hour, for a day, for a maximum of 2 days, and then dump it again. But it seems that the rods actually managed to sustain that pump, and they're still up 40% over the last 7 days.
Interesting. I like that take. Also, I guess is general strength in the penguin ecosystem, right? Penguins are up to about 10.4. So people seem pretty comfortable. I think they've dipped down a couple of times to as low as the back end of the 7s or 8 ETH region, and then kind of pushed out as a consequence back to above 10. So yeah, general strength in the penguin ecosystem. Nice to call that out. Sammy, what about you? What are you seeing on the NFT side? What's your observation?
Yeah, I've noticed a similar thing across other collections as well. Like we saw the run on to Gods recently, and that seems to be holding pretty well as well. And I think the Pudgy ecosystem is quite interesting because Obviously, they've had that recent partnership with Abstract, so the Abstract chain, and just observing how the likes of Saigar conducts himself on the timeline, how he explains like all these different things that are happening with other L2s, but reassuring, I guess, ecosystem participants, which includes Pudgies, that actually the approach they're taking with Abstract is pretty rigorous. And that's something that I'm kind of observing. And I think they're doing a very good job of that because they're very technical focused. I think Luke is very sort of commercially focused, and those two coming together, it's quite interesting to watch. Go on.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, kind of two big hitters kind of coming together to build out that infrastructure for Penguins and consumer crypto in that respect. And I guess against the context of the story protocol raise yesterday, this kind of chain that's going to get built specifically for IP, huge raise really at a Series B round from A16Z at 80 million. So like really big numbers that we're talking here, and yeah, pretty significant in that respect. Legendary, what else is kind of catching your attention before we get into the bigger discussion today and kind of get into the bigger headlines?
Definitely Abstract. I think as we spoke yesterday about the fact that the market's going to be more segmented, liquidity is going to be more segmented over the next couple of months, in real life events kicking off again. And nobody has talked about airdrops in quite a while. I do think that this is the time to start to look into potential plays and see if there's a way to play this similarly like Blast, where you're not only farming activity on Abstract, but also exploring what protocols are moving there, what protocols will be built natively, and been having a couple conversations with some of the teams. And I think this will be a main focus over the next couple of weeks or months for me.
Okay, that's interesting. Did you see yesterday? This is something that I think got circulated a little bit and people found kind of interesting. The Magic Eden announcement. Did you see that, Legendary?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm just going to try to find it. While I'm trying to find it, Sammy, just coming to you, like what's kind of catching your attention more broadly at the moment?
So the Abstract stuff is really interesting. I do think that is, I completely agree that is something that I have been focusing on. And I think having worked with Frame previously, which effectively rebranded to Abstract, I've got some sort of knowledge there. There was something else that's just completely slipped from my mind.
Okay, while you're thinking of that, I found the announcement. I'm going to share my screen so people can see in for the people who are watching. We've also got ME announced yesterday. So Magic Eden, or I guess more correctly to say the Magic Eden Foundation, or whatever they try to call themselves when they're trying to establish a DAO that is not the company. They tweeted this 21 hours ago, announcing ME powering the #1 cross-chain DApp ecosystem. People should be able to trade fungibles and NFTs on any major chain, anytime, all in one place. First, ME will be adopted by Magic Eden, the largest BTC DApp NFT platform on RuneStacks. And then the claim will be in the Magic Eden wallet. So look, that's just, again, it's one of the platforms. The NFT marketplace ones have typically been pretty good, haven't they? Like if you think of Blur, obviously was a huge airdrop. You think of Tensor, was also a very significant one. Now Magic Eden is coming to the party. Quick question to you, Legendary, on this. A, what do you think about Magic Eden? And then B, what do you think about this thing where people are saying to claim in the wallet? That I think we saw that with Blast for the first time, where it seems like this wallet is available on iOS and Android, and Blast, as part of the claim process, said, "Well, you need to download this wallet," and that was the first time I think that's been done in order to get users of the wallet and to download that. What's your thought on that?
Look, users in crypto are typically very lazy when it comes to new things, very reluctant. And the one moment in time where you can actually get them to fucking do something is when there is a token claim. Then you can get them to download an app. They will still protest against that and not be happy, but they will do it. So I absolutely get it. If you're building your own wallet infrastructure and you want to like show that to more people and also get those user statistics up, this is the perfect moment in time to be like, here's the token, here's the reward, but to get it, you actually have to watch this video, you have to download this app and do whatever, we think is relevant for the metrics that we want to drive in our ecosystem.
And I think the Phantom wallet as well, I think that was probably the first time I saw that, where it had those notifications that you actually can claim this. Because I think that's the thing, that a lot of people that kind of engage with all these protocols don't know they're eligible. So having those wallets that say, hey, look, we've looked at your address and you're actually eligible, that's a pretty impressive feature. And I think we'll see that rolled out across other wallets.
Definitely, yeah.
I like it. Okay. Any final thoughts, Legendary? You were kind of maybe going a bit more broader onto like, look, maybe it's time for airdrops to come back. We were speaking about this a little bit the other day, saying it's obviously been a quiet summer. What kind of things might we see? What kind of activity might we see as we move into September? Are you expecting September activity, October activity? I know we've invested in certain platforms and they've told us September is the time like that, that we should be able to expect certain things, but they've already gone through a number of delays. So I don't necessarily know if people will be able to come out exactly when they want even now. What's your kind of read on that situation with all of these tokens and protocols trying to come to market in around this period of time, whether that's September or October?
I think it's going to be a bit later for many. I think it's going to be more Q4. And I would also understand if some protocols will just choose to wait after the election and hope for that end of year print and rally and launch in that market. Admittedly, this will be then a competitive time frame again. So some protocols will try to quote unquote front run that and be a bit earlier. But I personally think September is a bit too early for big things to be happening. And I don't know, I kind of saw the sentiment on the timeline now that CZ is confirmed to come out in September, and he has moved to what is the term for that? A halfway house, or however they call that.
He's under arrest.
Yeah, but like the point was, when he's going to get out, the market will pump again. But I think people forget to realize that CZ has built the perfect business model with the token launches on Binance and the BNB farming, and he's still the largest BNB holder, and it's just printing a shit ton of money out of those TGs without having to sell his BNB. So he will make money. He doesn't need to pump the market to make more money. I do think that we put a bit too much optimism on him returning into freedom, which is a very significant thing, but it's not a market pumping thing.
Yes, I think that is definitely true. I think something will definitely pump in advance of him coming out, and then he's just going to come out and go back to his normal business life, which is now not related to crypto. And I mean, he said he's doing like this educational stuff. So, people will have this huge expectation. It will be like, okay, this is not going to be the exact comparison, but remember how it wasn't long ago, what was it, a month or two ago, when Roaring Kitty came back, and I mean, he truly sent the GameStop markets in a like really aggressive way. People were so hyped for him coming back, and then that YouTube live stream that he did, it was just like no plan, no like nothing really happened. But then the question people who maybe were a bit more sophisticated about it was, it's just like, what did you expect? What did you expect him to do at that particular moment? And so I think, although it's not exactly the same, I think the CZ getting out of prison thing is kind of, people love the idea. But 10 seconds after he's out, it's just like, well, what do you expect him to do as he walks out of the jail? Do you want him to have a ticker ready? Do you want him to like shill something in particular? Like what can he do? And then what's the likelihood of that thing happening? And basically, he's going to go back to doing whatever business he's doing that's got nothing to do with crypto. I think actually, as part of his deal, he said he will not be doing anything to do with Binance anymore. So that's my take on that. Sam, I want to give you a chance to come in there.
But I think the market structurally changed as well. Like you look at Elon Musk back in 2021 with Doge, like he would mention it and it would absolutely send. And even Bitcoin would send as well. And I think that he had Doge the other day, he referenced it the other day, and it did absolutely nothing. So I think the participants have wised up. So retail investors have probably become a little bit smarter. Institutional investors have come in that probably aren't really impacted by those kind of things. So the market dynamic has changed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's a good point on Doge. Legendary, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to welcome Funky to the stage. He raised his hand on that topic and want to hear from you, Funky, what your thoughts are on our discussion so far.
Admittedly, I'm late, GM everybody, but I did want to just chime in on a couple things. Specifically for the delayed TGEs, I don't know if you guys saw it in the Modern Market Discord, but Swell, I've seen October 8th, and I know a lot of people were doing stuff with Swell, so that may be around the time. And I would expect to see some of these airdrops starting to roll out. Maybe to your point, Legendary not in September, but October, November. I think some of these things are going to get delayed when the market's starting to get frothy, assuming that it does again. And just to the point of BNB, and I don't know if it's funny if you look at the chart, because I remember this, B-Check, this might have been a little bit before you got here, but if you remember the end, like the very beginning of 2021, BNB absolutely went monster. Like, I mean, from February to May, it went from like $50 to, I don't know, like almost $700 or something. I remember people posting about it all the time on X. And I just wonder if the fervor is going to come back, because just the fact that, oh, CZ's out of jail, like, and is it going to just instantly 4x as the market comes back? And, who knows? But I think it's going to be, we're in for an interesting ride probably in Q4 and into Q1. That's for sure.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I think the market will definitely try to put that, inject that feeling into BNB, try to get some of that CZ energy and apply it to the market. I don't know if it will work necessarily, but yeah, looking at that chart, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? That it really did experience a euphoria back then, but interestingly, like the price is still really, really high. Like we've spoken about BNB before. It's like, it's just one of those tokens that will just not get the same attention and conversation about it from kind of Western crypto Twitter, because I don't know, it's not spoken about as much. Let's get into the key discussion topic for the day, which I think is very interesting. I pulled out this article on big crypto spending. This is done by citizen.org, and it's some key findings on like how much crypto's influence has increased over time. I'm going to share my screen for people who are watching in. And, people have complained crypto doesn't really have a voice, doesn't really have a centralized voice, an ability to influence people. I think what they're suggesting is that people have got their act together, people in the crypto industry, and are starting to take action in terms of trying to influence the right people. Here are some key findings from the Public Citizen report. In 2024, crypto corporations have poured over $119 million directly into influencing federal elections, primarily into a non-partisan super PAC dedicated to electing pro-crypto candidates and defeating crypto skeptics. Point number 2, crypto corporations are by far the dominant corporate political spenders in 2024, as nearly half, 48% of all corporate money contributed during this year's elections, 248 million so far, came from crypto backers. Next, Koch Industries is a distant second place in 2024. The privately held conglomerate owned by Charles and formerly the late David Koch contributed $25 million to its Koch-controlled Americans for Prosperity Action and $3.25 million towards electing Republicans for Congress. Direct corporate election spending at this scale is unprecedented. Crypto corporations' total spending in the past 3 election cycles was $129 million. Already amounts to 15% of all known corporate contributions since the Supreme Court's 2010 ruling in Citizens United. A few other maybe important details. Crypto corporations are now second in total election-related spending, trailing only fossil fuel corporations. That's these details are pretty significant. I'm going to stop there, Legendary, and just come to you for your thoughts. What do you think of the kind of crypto corporations in the States finally banding together and putting serious money behind candidates, investing the money in trying to influence the elections? What's your thought on some of these numbers that are being reported?
Yeah, the numbers are way bigger than I expected them to be honest. I think it's that is actually the way you do mass onboarding. Political lobbyism is very important, whether you like it or not. And I do think that while I personally dislike that this is the way the world works, I can't change it. So I do think it's very good for the sake of our industry that this money is being put to work and to gain political influence.
Yeah, look, I think that's exactly right. This is obviously necessary. And one of the things that I've always said, kind of informally, is just why are people not just paying the people? Just pay the people. Pay the people that you need to pay in order to get some of the stuff that we need to get through. Yes, certain people are hostile to the industry. Well, the thing that will need to happen is that the institutions and the crypto sector corporations will need to pay more than the people who are hostile. And at some point in time, I mean, I think we've already got to the point on some level where, the Republicans are, well, Trump is being specifically pro crypto because he's realized that there's a significant vote out there which cares about it. Seems like the Democrats might be needing to move a touch as well, in order to appease some of these people who are participants. Um, and yeah, I think this is what's happening. Just a few more details. Crypto sector corporations, primarily Coinbase and Ripple, have dumped over $190 million in real dollars into the 2024 election so far, almost entirely into super PACs dedicated to elevating pro crypto candidates and attacking crypto skeptics. So huge contributions. I'm just going to share on screen if people wanted to see some of the numbers. Might not necessarily go into those, but I'm going to share it so people can see the different contributions by different people. Sammy, coming to you here for your thoughts. What are you thinking?
It's an interesting one. I mean, ultimately, I think crypto's getting validity as a means of exchange through like traditional corporations and politics now. So I think we're just going to see more of this. I don't think it necessarily has to mean that it comes from crypto companies. I think at the next election or the election after, this could be donations, crypto donations from the average Joe. And I think that's just going to change over time. And the fact that you've got BlackRock and some of the other biggest asset managers in the world now opening up ETFs, like I think this is just going to become more prevalent. I don't think it necessarily has to come from crypto advocates. I think that's just going to be the way the future ends up unraveling.
I like it. I am actually going to pick out a few of these donors so people know who's donated what. It's kind of cool, right? Because this is all officially done. It's all transparent. You can figure out who's given what. And then Funky, I know your hand is raised. We'll come to you in just a second. So Coinbase total 2024 contributions is just over 50 mil. Ripple is just bang on 49 mil. Jump Crypto, who everyone was hating the other day for selling all their ETH, has 15 mil in total 2024 contributions. Maybe that came from them selling all their damn ETH, trying to do something better with it. And Jason Horowitz, 1.75 mil. And then the other contributions are very small. Payward Inc., 1 mil, Circle, 1 mil, Paradigm, 1 mil. Well, relatively small compared to the other ones. Very, very interesting to see here. Funky, what's your observation or comment on the kind of increased political donations that we're seeing from crypto organizations?
I'm going to start off with the idea of bag bias because I will be the first to admit, as a US citizen, I felt for the longest time that Citizens versus United, the 2010 decision, was one of the most damaging things that ever happened to our political process because that allowed money to be free speech in the US. And so corporations over time have continued to kind of gather power through this process, super PACs, because it's all very clouded and so on and so forth. But now that it's quote unquote pumping our bags, I'm kind of all for it because I feel as if this is really going to help the industry overall. You look at, I'm sure we have some fellow Americans on here as well. They probably belong, like I do, to the Stand with Crypto movement, which was spearheaded by Coinbase. So we're starting to see this kind of political activism happening and trying to get everyday citizens involved, which I think is very good. My part-time gig with Ardent, for instance, which is part of the ARC blockchain ecosystem, we actually belong to the Blockchain Association, which is the largest trade association that's acted on the federal level. And I'm actually going to get to go to DC in mid-December to interface with federal legislators and bureaucrats and so on and so forth as part of the BA mission. So I think that all of this bodes very well, not only for this election cycle, but just thinking about the future of crypto. Obviously, I've mentioned many times, I'm very much a long-term minded investor. This is all up and to the right. But the more that we can do to educate the average citizen, I've brought it up in a restaurant just recently. I said something about Bitcoin, and somebody looked at me and said, "Isn't that a scam?" So we have not penetrated the general mind share of most average citizens in this country. So these kinds of efforts are going to, especially when you mentioned the part where it's to convince sort of the skeptics, I think is very beneficial for the entire industry long term, despite my personal misgivings as a voter and a citizen about Citizens United from 2010 with the SCOTUS decision.
Love it, man.
And I think just in terms of like who those recipients are, if you look at was it SBF back in 2022, significant political donator. And I think just to Funky's point around the education piece, like Coinbase is a massive advocate for kind of educating what crypto can be used for and for the good. And I think that coming from those institutions is far more powerful than someone who potentially is a bit more nefarious and has sort of ulterior motives. So I think that's an incredibly powerful thing from an education standpoint.
I like it. Ultimately, I think it's good if you want to be successful in, frankly, anywhere, but particularly in the States as part of the lobbying process. That lobbying process exists, whether you like it or not. And now crypto corporations are participating. That's all that I think people needed to do in order to get things moving. And I think that is happening now. So that is good to see. Thought some of those numbers were very, very important to bring up to you also. I hope that was interesting to get a bit of a scale of what is going on behind the scenes with some of these corporate donations. Look, we got another couple of very important headlines to bring up to you. Legendary, I know you wanted to go into the Justin Sun stablecoin. Why don't you set this up for us and take us through what information you found with this $750 million worth of Bitcoin being removed as part of its backing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a super relevant story. Multiple media outlets, including Cointelegraph, have reported on it, and they have been saying that this Tron stablecoin USDD had its Bitcoin collateral removed without a vote from its DAO. And Justin Sun is insisting that this is a normal event in DeFi. I do want to take a step back and set this story up properly. And I want to start by taking a look at the Tron DAO reserve. When we spoken about Tron, we said stablecoin market cap is huge and it is absolutely dominated by Tether. Out of the 62.9 billion in stables on Tron, 61.8 billion are Tether. Still, the second largest stablecoin is USDD, the one that we want to talk about now, with a supply of 744 mil out of potential total of 2 billion USDD that could be issued. As you said in the beginning of the show, it was actually set up as a competitor back when Luna was still around to have a Tron native algorithmic backed stablecoin. And the way that it is backed is it's over collateralized. You can see this sharing it on the screen here. And it used to be backed by those additional 700 million in BTC that you had mentioned before, Bcheck. And now for the total supply of 744 mil, there is a collateral put up of 1.7 bill. So it's over collateralized, 232% over collateralization, which at a first look, you would say, this looks healthy. This looks pretty strong. However, if you break down those collaterals, there 1.7 billion are 19 million in USDT in Tether, and the remainder is a 10 billion TRX, so Tron's a native token. And that might look pretty good right now. And again, it's a very similar situation that we've seen with Luna Terra, how this stablecoin is set up. And if you look at the TRX at the Tron chart, you can actually see that Tron is up 100% over the last year. So if this movement were to be reversed completely, then that over collateralization ratio would go down massively. I have a couple of thoughts both in favor and against that. But before I get into this, quickly want to go to Justin Sun's post himself on that and what he had to say on this move. Especially the criticism was that he did it himself. He also posted it from his personal account, not from the foundation account, and that it happened without any governance mechanism in the DAO. And he's saying in his post, regarding the decentralized stablecoin USDD, its mechanism is similar to MakerDAO's DAI and is not mysterious. When your collateral exceeds the amount specified by the system, usually between 120 and 150%, depending on the vault, any collateral holder can withdraw any amount freely without anyone's approval. If the collateral falls below a certain level, typically under 110%, it needs to be topped up. Otherwise, the collateral may trigger liquidation. This is part of the basics of DeFi 101. Currently, USDT has a long-term collateralization rate exceeding 300%, which means that the capital utilization is not very efficient. The Tron DAO Reserve plans to spend time upgrading USDT in the future to make it more competitive, decentralized stablecoin in the market. Remember, Tron is also a kingdom of stablecoins. Now, if we
keep going.
if we look at this DAO structure, again, Justin explained why this doesn't need a DAO proposal still. If we take a look at the USDT DAO, there has been a total of 1 proposal so far in its entire history, just that as a side note. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to take a look at Blue Chip. Blue Chip is an organization that we talked about on the show before. It's a stablecoin rating agency, and they had quite interesting and very, very strongly worded things to say about USDD. So first of all, and I'm sharing this still on screen, USDD has received an F grade, being the worst grade that Blue Chip can give out, and is saying that USDD is issued and managed by the Tron DAO Reserve. It's claimed to be an over-collateralized, decentralized stablecoin, but it's substantially similar to the failed UST stablecoin with Luna and UST. Back then, it was only 50% of USDT supply is backed by non-TRX collateral, nearly all of which is BTC, and that has fallen away. This is the news that we've been reporting on. And then they're also making 2 more points. One is saying the wallet containing USDT's BTC has been claimed by Huobi Exchange as their own. As both USDT and Huobi are controlled by Justin Sun, we suspect commingling of assets. And they conclude to say they're strongly recommending users not to use USDD.
Wow.
And if you go to the governance part of it, they are even clearer there, and they're saying USDD does not have a governance system. This is why I wanted to look at the amount of active proposals in the past. USDD holders have no legal or code-based protection and are at the mercy of Tron DAO Reserve. My final thought on that, it is a smaller stablecoin, but I think it's relevant because it's a native stablecoin on Tron. And obviously, in the similar fashion, how Justin Sun has removed the collateral, if the price of Tron drops or if the collateralization ratio goes down, I'm very, very confident that he would add that back and he won't let that stablecoin fail because it would be damaging to his reputation. But nonetheless, we are talking like about the benefits of decentralization and not having to put trust into those systems. So I do agree with Blue Chip's conclusion that at the end of the day, you are at the mercy of Tron DAO Reserve and at Justin Sun's mercy if this stablecoin remains pegged or does not remain pegged. And we've seen a depeg once going down all the way to 92 cents. Obviously has regained the peg a long while ago, but it doesn't seem to be a very decentralized structure right now.
Love the breakdown. That's super, super helpful. Really, really interesting stuff. I've got a couple of questions on it, and maybe just to help to clarify for the audience who are listening in, there's a lot of information to take in. The first point that I'd make is to confirm with you that, yes, although it's not like one of the biggest stable coins, because I was doing a bit of a deep dive into stable coins as well myself this morning, it's still the 7th. It's the 7th largest stablecoin. It's got a market cap of around $744 million. It's just beneath PayPal, which has obviously got these huge incentives. We're going to talk about that in a moment, which has gone up to 950. For other context, Tether is at 117 billion, USDC is at 34 billion, DAI is at 5 billion, Athena is at 3 billion, and then you have these 3 coming up next. So whilst it isn't the biggest, it's definitely not small either. So I agree with that point. My question, if you're able to answer this, is then, is the justification for taking out this Bitcoin says like, look, is the question, is the justification basically, we are too over collateralized. It's not efficient for us to, like, there's no utilization here. It's just, there's no point in having this much collateral tied up in just to secure the stablecoin itself. And what was this thing about anyone being able to take it out? Just like, oh yeah, it's not me. Anyone can do that who's part of the DAO. Do you know how that works in particular? What's that about?
Yeah, so to the first question, yes, this is the point that Justin Sun has been making. it had over 300% over collateralization. He wants to put the assets to work. Hence, he took out the Bitcoin and only left, quote unquote, only left the Tron in there and just a couple million that are there in Tether. And to your second question, it's not even about the DAO members, because it's not a DAO process. It's more about the collateral holders, that they can freely withdraw. So basically, if you think about Aave, say Aave is a lending platform, and you're lending there, and everything is fine and over collateralized, you can still withdraw your money. And this is a similar mechanism, obviously on a more quote unquote institutional level here. And Justin Sun is claiming that it's exactly how MakerDAO's DAI mechanism is working. I can't speak to that in detail if this really works like that, because I didn't have a chance to look into that. But it's not a DAO process. It's basically that any collateral holder can withdraw if the collateral exceeds a collateralization of 120 to 150%, depending on which vault you're operating on USDD.
Interesting. Maybe I've got a final reflection, but Sam, do you have anything to contribute or ask on this?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this smells like the FTT token with the FTX collapse. Like and I don't know whether that's going to be the case, because ultimately it depends on the liquidity and cascading events, and whether you can actually repost that collateral that isn't the TRX token. But if you think about the way that unwound, was the FTT token made up a significant portion of the FTX balance sheet. They became illiquid and therefore were unable to basically repay. And I think that is one of my biggest concerns. As an ex-auditor, I'd be like, okay, well, is the analogy I would use in terms of what's actually happened here is they've taken out an asset that is like verified to be like pretty solid, like Bitcoin. But they reposted it with the likes of, I don't know, Sandbox. Like, I create some collateral that's valid, that the market's priced at this amount. I don't know to the extent whether they can reproduce those TRX tokens. I don't know what the cap is, and I don't know what the emissions are. But if they needed to sell that and there wasn't the liquidity in the market, that TRX token would have a cascading effect. And that's probably my biggest concern. And I think that just the point around the processes and controls, like I just don't get how that particular point around, if it exceeds 300% over collateralized balance, or whatever the figures you used, that to me, just I don't understand how that can be a legitimate control. I would just question the integrity of those processes as well. I just don't think that that's right. Just smells off.
Yeah, I think
information real quick. Sorry, P-check. Tron does not have a maximum supply. It doesn't have a supply cap.
There you go.
Interesting. Okay, interesting comparison to bring up, like shades of FTX as well. If you remember that correctly, a lot of FTT was involved in the collateralization, or just the FTT token played a big role, and then that's obviously the token that started to decrease aggressively.
One thing that is important to add there, just because we're going into those comparisons, it's 700 mil in USDD, and the max supply that can be issued is $2 billion. So they can't print 10 billions of tens and tens of billions of this stablecoin. So while it doesn't look good to have this like trust element of having to trust that Justin Sun is doing the right thing for the stablecoin, I would dare to make the claim that it's still too small to be a systemic risk for the Tron ecosystem.
Okay. Interesting stuff. I think that's one to keep an eye on, with the maybe increased prominence of the Tron blockchain, given its meme coin activity recently. Maybe it will stay in the headlines longer. Definitely something to keep your eye on, and we will do that as we move forward. Let's keep it moving, because we've got another really important headline to get to today. But before we do that, let's hit the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the last 24 hours. Number one, BTC staking goes live with Babylon Labs. Transactions briefly cost as much as $132 yesterday, as users rush to be the first to stake. Maybe that's where he was putting all the Bitcoin. He wants to stake his native Bitcoin for the first time possible. Bitcoin historically has not been able to achieve a yield, but now people are trying to get you staking your Bitcoin. Maybe this is where it's going. I'm saying that a little bit joking, but who knows? We just don't know. Number 2, Tron flips Circle in 24-hour revenue, 5.4 million versus 4.1 million. Next, Franklin Templeton launches on-chain treasuries fund on Avalanche. Haven't heard about Avalanche in a while. That's pretty good news for them. Former Binance CEO CZ moved from prison to halfway house. It's said that 38 days left until his scheduled release. Gordon Goner, in other news, announces secret Yuga Labs project, which will be the biggest competition in the world. Whenever Gordon tweets, Yuga Labs holders, Bored Ape holders get pretty damn excited, and rightly so. Next, Pump Fund announces Stages, which is multiple people live streaming at the same time. And finally, Cyberkongs announced partnership with 9DCC on Genkai Warrior hoodie. This comes on the back of, I think it was yesterday, they announced a partnership with Adidas. So that was pretty cool from them as well. That's the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the past 24 hours. Let's hit the final headline for today. Where we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on the PayPal news. So this is from my newsletter, which I wrote and published a little bit earlier today. It is the 136th edition of my weekly newsletter. And the title was PayPal Huge Stablecoin Incentives. We have been saying in the last few days that PayPal's numbers have been going up a hell of a lot, and we just didn't know why. We've kind of figured it out now, because there are a lot of incentives going on with PayPal USD in particular. So that's what we're going to explain in this part of the show. So the first thing I'd say is I've been pretty vocal about how I think stablecoins are the best business model in the world. It's pretty amazing. If you still don't get it, basically, usually when you give your money to a bank, you expect an interest rate in return because you know the bank is making some money off your money, so you should get a slice. But stablecoin providers, however, do not need to give holders any return, because up until now, stablecoin holders have been happy knowing that their money is safe in the bank whilst operating in such a risky industry. And usually they get access to good rates on stablecoins in DeFi anyway. So that has obviously been hugely profitable for stablecoin providers, because they can take your money, keep a lot of cash in the bank and earn interest, or buy treasuries and earn interest. And they earn a whole load of interest on your money, and they don't have to give any of that back to you. But maybe, I guess what we're suggesting is that is changing now, or that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Like, that's going to change now. PayPal wants in on this market, but that means they need to disrupt the two main stablecoin providers. So I did a little look at the stablecoins earlier today, and we've kind of been talking about them as well already, right? Tether has a $117 billion market cap, and Circle has a $34 billion market cap. DAI is at 5 billion and Athena is at 3. PayPal is way behind at 960, but its market cap is up 63% in the last month. So that's aggressive growth. So why is that happening? And the answer is, just like most things in crypto and most things in the world, frankly, is incentives. So there's two bits of information that I picked out, a couple of which I mentioned informally on the show a couple of days ago, and then a new piece of information that came out today. First, from DL News, they said that the key to PYUSD's success are the lucrative incentives offered to those using the dollar peg stablecoin in Solana DeFi protocols. Each week, PayPal provides lending protocol Camino and trading platform Drift with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of PYUSD to distribute to users. Depositing PYUSD on Drift earns users over 16% annually in kind, while Camino offers around 13%. That's significantly higher than the 3.5% yield users can earn lending PYUSD on Aave, Ethereum's biggest lending protocol, where PayPal isn't juicing the yield. So this juice in the yield is being provided by PayPal, according to DL News, and also being targeted at very specific Solana protocols, being Drift and Camino. And actually, the yield is actually a little bit higher than what was reported when I was on the website yesterday. It was as high as 17 to 18%. Maybe that's changed a little bit now. I'm not 100% sure, but you need to double check that. The second piece of news, which I think is interesting, is that today we had Fortune reporting the following. They said when PayPal have joined the stablecoin wars in August 2023 with its dollar-backed PYUSD, the crypto industry celebrated the entrance of a TradFi company into a competitive arena that was dominated by Tether and Circle. But a year after its launch, PayPal is still lagging behind its competitors. As we just said, it's miles behind, basically. But in a bid to increase adoption, PayPal today, this announcement is from today, is partnering with Anchorage Digital, the only US crypto firm to hold a federal bank charter, to offer rewards to Anchorage Digital's user base of accredited investors who hold PayPal USD at its bank, at its US bank, its Singapore subsidiary. So it seems to be the case that on two fronts, on the Camino and Drift front, on Solana, there's these kind of there's this juice being provided to the yields by PayPal, and then you've also got this new product, maybe slightly more for institutional investors. It's like, look, if you want exposure to the crypto industry, if you want to do stuff by holding stablecoins, you might as well hold our stablecoin, because we are going to give you some of that yield that every other stablecoin provider is never giving you. So that's my take on the PayPal situation, the PayPal stablecoin situation, and the kind of explanation for why they have been growing their market cap and share of the stablecoin market so aggressively over the last few weeks. Legendary, what are your thoughts here?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think when we spoke about PYUSD first, we said it's going to take a lot of time for the market to adopt it broadly, for the market cap of that stablecoin to grow. It's going to take years. Obviously, you trust the stablecoins that have been around for multiple years and have managed to go through black swan events, DPEG, repeg, etc. But on the other hand, what's a better way in crypto to accelerate things than just slapping an incentivized program, yield farming, staking returns, other forms of returns? And it makes sense for them to do that and basically drive adoption by that. And it has been very successful. Like the PYUSD growth rate is significant. We haven't been speaking about that stable coin after it launched for quite a while, and now it's back because the numbers demand that we speak about it. So it's a smart and working initiative, but that won't, stick forever. Then the question really is, in absence of this incentivized yield, will the money stay in PYUSD, or will it move to the next thing? And I do think that a lot of the capital that we see in crypto is mercenary and is very happy to move to the next best opportunity. So I think it's great for them to increase numbers now and to see it as a marketing spend that gets people to speak about what they are doing and building. But I don't think that it works if the strategy were to create sticky users with that.
I think that's a very, very fair point. Sammy, I want to come to you with this. Like, I think what Legendary said is basically correct. This can't last forever as well. People can't just juice the rewards to this extent for so long. But I can foresee, what do you think of this idea? I can foresee a scenario where a number of huge players, PayPal's not the only people who have probably seen the stablecoin business model, been like, hang on a minute, that's really, really profitable. I want a slice of that. I could see a world where a bunch of other huge players try to break into the market, and if PayPal can demonstrate the strategy works to increase its market cap, and it is working at the moment, they will all need to incentivize users in the same way. So could we see this type of stablecoin boom, in the sense that lots of different providers will realize that in order to capture some of the share, if they want to participate seriously, they're going to need to juice the yield to knock away at this market share that Circle and USDT have at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's an extremely lucrative business, and I think doing effectively like a loss leader model to start with, where you have these costs up front, definitely it makes sense to do that. I think the one thing about PayPal is the distribution they have as well outside of crypto. So once they've plugged in, you've then got that distribution model into all those vendors that are signed up with them already. And that's something that probably Tether and Circle don't necessarily have at this point in time. So it'd be interesting to see if they kind of disrupt the Web3 model and then plug into the traditional model, or whether Circle and Tether kind of make those partnerships with those large vendors separately and compete equally.
I like it. I like the thinking. But look, guys, that is the end of the show. Hope that was interesting. We're kind of focusing on doing a few more deep dives per show and making sure we've got like the data, the numbers, as much research as we can. Obviously, as we said, like we can't cover every single thing. A lot of this stuff is done just the morning before getting into the research, trying to provide the best information possible. And sometimes we're live researching as new information comes up in the YouTube comments or in the Twitter comments as well. So we hope that information is helpful to you. that is our intention, to make it as informative and enjoyable as possible. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you to my legendary co-hosts, Legendary and Sammy. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, every single day, Monday, we will be back 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X, live on YouTube. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and we'll see you the other side. Bye-bye.